HOA president broke into my ranch and attacked my dog, so I defended us with my rifle. What would you do if the very person sworn to uphold community standards became the biggest threat to your peace, your property, and the life of your most loyal companion? When does a dispute over property lines and perceived nuisances escalate into a fight for survival, forcing you to draw a line in the dust with the most serious of intentions? For years, the sprawling acres of my ranch, Whispering Pines, had been my sanctuary, a tranquil haven far from the petty squabbles of suburban life. My closest companion was Ranger, a magnificent German shepherd retired from a distinguished career as a K-9 officer. Ranger was more than a dog. He was my shadow, my protector, and the gentlest soul with a deep, booming bark reserved almost exclusively for the occasional deer venturing too close or a stray coyote eyeing the chicken coop. This peaceful existence, however, was about to be shattered by the self-proclaimed empress of our HOA, Beatrice Albright. Beatrice, with her meticulously coiffed platinum blonde hair and a penchant for aggressively floral pantsuits, had recently ascended to the HOA presidency. Her reign quickly became synonymous with arbitrary rules, thinly veiled power plays, and an unyielding conviction that her aesthetic preferences superseded everyone else's property rights. Her latest obsession? Ranger. She claimed his barks were disruptive, intimidating, and lowering property values, despite the fact that Whispering Pines sat on 20 acres, well outside the meticulously manicured plots of her inner circle. Her demands, delivered in clipped, authoritative tones during increasingly frequent inspections, ranged from Ranger being permanently muzzled to his outright removal. Mr. Dawson, she'd begun, her voice dripping with condescension on her last visit, this isn't a rural backwater. We have standards here. Your animal is a liability. It's a blight on our tranquil community. I'm giving you 1 week to comply. Her eyes, cold and sharp, darted from Ranger, who merely eyed her with detached curiosity, to my worn boots, clearly judging every thread. Her tone made it clear that her word was law and any deviation was a personal affront. I tried to reason with her, explaining Ranger's history, his gentle nature, and the fact that he was well within our property lines. I even offered to install advanced sound-dampening panels along the fence line closest to the development she championed. Mrs. Albright, I'd stated calmly, Ranger is a retired K-9. He's trained, loyal, and poses no threat to anyone. His barks are a natural part of ranch life, and frankly, we're miles from anyone he could possibly disturb. She merely sniffed, adjusting her designer sunglasses. Your ranch life is interfering with our community harmony, Mr. Dawson. And your solutions are inadequate. We will fine you. We will litigate. And believe me, the HOA has deeper pockets than a solitary rancher. Her icy resolve was chilling. The following week passed in an unnerving silence, broken only by Ranger's usual, contented sighs. I thought perhaps she had moved on to some other trivial crusade. How naive I was. I was in the barn, patching a leaky pipe, when a guttural snarl, unlike Ranger's usual warnings, ripped through the afternoon quiet, followed by a sharp, pained yelp. My blood ran cold. That wasn't a warning bark. It was a cry of distress. I dropped my wrench and bolted out of the barn, heart hammering against my ribs. What I saw sent a primal surge of fury through me. Beatrice Albright stood over Ranger, a sleek, black object gripped in her hand. Ranger was writhing, a high-pitched whine escaping him, clearly in pain, his fur smoking slightly where the object had touched him. A taser. She had tasered my dog on my property. My eyes immediately locked onto the main gate, which I had clearly latched. It was now ajar, the chain cut clean through. She hadn't just trespassed. She had broken in with malicious intent. Instinct took over. I keep a hunting rifle by the door for coyotes and, on rare occasions, mountain lions. Without thinking, I grabbed it, chambering a round with a decisive click that echoed across the yard. Get away from him! I roared, my voice raw with a mixture of fear and rage. Beatrice, startled, dropped the taser and spun around, her face a mask of shock and indignation. How dare you? She shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me, the rifle now pointed at the ground but clearly visible. You assaulted my dog, Beatrice. You broke into my home. I countered, my voice shaking with barely contained fury. Ranger whimpered, trying to push himself up, his eyes wide and disoriented. It was then, as my gaze swept the scene, that I noticed it. Not far from where Beatrice stood, tucked beneath a rose bush I'd planted years ago, a tiny red light blinked steadily. It was the indicator light of one of my new security drones, a miniature quadcopter I'd bought on a whim weeks ago and forgotten to properly test. It must have activated automatically when it detected the intrusion. A cold, hard realization settled in. It had captured everything. Every step of her trespass, every horrifying moment of her assault on Ranger. The enormity of her actions hit me with renewed force. Ranger wasn't just my dog. He was a cornerstone of the local community's animal therapy program. 3 times a week, I drove him to the children's hospital where his calm presence brought smiles to faces ravaged by illness. Just last month, a local newspaper had run a heartwarming piece about his work with a young girl battling cancer. Beatrice's attack hadn't just harmed my pet, it had jeopardized a vital source of comfort for vulnerable children. This wasn't just a personal vendetta, it was an act of callous disregard with far-reaching consequences. "You're going to regret this, Mr. Dawson." Beatrice spat, her initial shock giving way to her usual indignant bluster. "Brandishing a weapon. I'll have you arrested. This is your fault. Your dog attacked me." She started to move towards the broken gate, clearly intending to flee, concocting her false narrative even as the words left her mouth. Ranger whimpered again, struggling to stand. My heart ached for him. "You're not going anywhere, Beatrice," a calm, authoritative voice cut through the tense air. Sheriff Miller, his patrol car rolling slowly down my long gravel driveway, pulled to a stop. He stepped out, his gaze sweeping from the broken gate to the still smoldering ground where Ranger lay, to Beatrice, and finally to me, the rifle still in my hand. His face, usually jovial, was grim. "Got a call from a concerned neighbor, Alex. Said they saw someone tampering with your gate. Thought I'd check in." He paused, his eyes narrowing as he took in Beatrice's disheveled appearance and the taser on the ground. "Mrs. Albright? What exactly is going on here?" Beatrice immediately launched into a frantic, disjointed explanation, painting herself as the victim, claiming Ranger had lunged at her and I had threatened her with a firearm. But before she could finish, a familiar black SUV pulled up behind the sheriff's car. Out stepped a woman in a crisp suit, her expression serious. It was Martha Jenkins, a veteran investigative reporter from the county paper. "Sheriff," she began, "I got an anonymous tip about a series of aggressive HOA actions and a peculiar incident involving Mrs. Albright and a certain rancher's property. Imagine my surprise to find a police presence." Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, landed on the still recording drone. The pressure mounted. Sheriff Miller, already skeptical of Beatrice's performance, noticed the drone. "Is that an active camera, Alex?" he asked. I nodded, pointing to the blinking light. "It's been recording since she broke in." Beatrice's face went ashen. The bravado evaporated, replaced by a sudden, stark fear. Her eyes darted wildly, her lips working soundlessly. "And," Martha Jenkins added, pulling out her phone, "I've also received some rather damning internal HOA documents that suggest a pattern of, shall we say, unorthodox methods to acquire properties that would benefit a certain development project in the valley." She cast a pointed look at Beatrice. "It seems Whispering Pines, with its prime location for a new luxury golf course, was high on her list of targets to resolve." It was a minor twist, a glimpse into the deeper, calculated motive behind Beatrice's relentless crusade, making her actions even more despicable. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Ranger's soft, recovering breaths. Beatrice looked utterly defeated. The color drained from her face, leaving her pale and drawn. Her meticulously coiffed hair seemed to wilt. The queen of the HOA had been dethroned, not by a rival, but by her own hubris and a small, blinking red light. The legal and social repercussions were swift and brutal. Beatrice Albright faced multiple charges: criminal trespass, animal cruelty, and obstruction of justice for her false accusations. The footage from the drone, combined with Martha Jenkins's exposé on her manipulative HOA tactics, became undeniable evidence. The HOA board, once cowering beneath her iron fist, publicly disavowed her actions and immediately initiated proceedings to remove her from her presidency, followed by a series of emergency meetings to reverse her more draconian rules. Community members, emboldened by her downfall, came forward with their own stories of harassment and intimidation. Several residents joined a class action lawsuit against her for misusing HOA funds and abusing her authority. Beatrice lost everything she held dear: her coveted position, her carefully crafted image, and the respect, or at least fear, she had commanded. Her name became synonymous with petty tyranny and gross misconduct. She became a pariah, ostracized by the very elite she had so desperately tried to impress. Her perfect life unraveled, a bitter harvest reaped from seeds of arrogance and malice. As for me, I felt no elation, only a profound exhaustion. Ranger, thankfully, made a full recovery, though the experience left an invisible scar. I had defended my home and my companion, but the cost was a jarring confrontation that ripped away the illusion of peace. Yet, there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that justice, however painfully achieved, had prevailed. In the end, what truly constitutes justice? When someone's unchecked arrogance and disregard for others' rights lead to such destructive outcomes, what line must be drawn? Is defending your property and loved ones, even with extreme measures, always justified when faced with such malice? How do we balance personal freedom with community harmony, especially when those in power abuse their authority? Share your thoughts.